Hey there, Icarus here. Been spending a lot of time thinking about Duke's nuts recently. Wait, no. Nuts in Duke. I'm not sure that's any better, to be perfectly honest. But any of you familiar with Doom may also be familiar with a map set known as Nuts. It's basically a big, giant room filled with pretty much every enemy Doom can handle. For those that it can't, it relegates to an additional room on the opposite end of the first room and says, "Go nuts, try and beat that shit, you fucking noob." And it is doable. People have done it. They've fought through the frame drops, they've fought through the pain, they have completed Nuts. So much so that there's a sequel. And a sequel to that. And now, in the infinite wisdom of the universe, I have discovered that there is in fact a version of Nuts for Duke 3D. Naturally, I've got nothing better to do in my life, so I decided I'd take an old crack at it. How hard could it possibly be? Very. In fact, it's very, very difficult. Truth be told, if you're not aiming for 100% kills during the course of a Nuts map, there are ways that you can in fact breeze through it quite easily. The first Nuts, for example, you can quite handily storm your way to the exit if you know what you're doing. Nuts 3, however, that's the big one. That's the one that actively forces you to engage with the level in order to get through it. And personally, the one that is definitely the most impressive to say that you've beaten. If you want a good idea of how that might go, I'd advise checking out Decino's 100% ultra-violence run of it. The man is a wizard, and honestly, I even think he wouldn't have much trouble getting through this. Me, however, I'm not a wizard. I'm not even an apprentice. I am, however, possessed of a very particular brand of hard-headedness. But in any case, where this particular map prevents you from outright cheesing it is the fact that the door at the back is actually a keycard door. In order to reach said keycard, you'll have to kill enough enemies to actually get to the center of this field. As you might have noticed, there's a lot of enemies in the way. But happily, Duke is possessed of an ability that Doom Guy, well, at least if you're playing by vanilla rules, does not. And that is the ability to jump. And leveraging those early rows of enemies to leapfrog over the rest is kind of vital to survival. You want to get everyone all mixed up and engaged in that time-old tradition of monster infighting. You'll also need to be pretty handy at identifying where your health pickups are, because in the midst of all this, you can take some pretty goddamn serious hits. And this map is very much all about maintaining that health for as long as you possibly can. At the very least, the map does start you off in good stead. 2 atomic healths at the beginning will bump you straight up to 200. You can pick up a usable med kit, some armor, but the Battle Lord at the beginning here does startle very quickly and will start whittling you down practically right away. So yeah, you gotta keep moving, gotta get that leapfrog going. And even further to that, in terms of incentive, at the opposite end, you do have access to yet another atomic health, and a few more lesser health items that you can pick up on successive orbits. And really, that's the strat. Keep orbiting. Keep that mosh pit contained to the center and just whittle it down with every pass where possible. But honestly, if I had to pinpoint the biggest pain in the arse out of the entire group of enemies here, it would easily be the Enforcers. Those hit-scanning, chain gun-wielding douchebags. They persist infuriatingly long into this fight, and when they're not occupied with infighting, they will be chipping away at that health where possible. Thankfully, you do have the ability to leap back up to that starting platform in this here map, and actually jump onto the ledge, where a few handily placed small medkit pickups await. This will seriously keep you trucking in the late stage of the fight. And all you really need to focus on from there on in is just plugging away at that core group and keeping yourself topped up. I did nearly screw myself completely by just changing my strat and going the opposite direction. I didn't think I was going to survive the next orbit, and jumping up to the ledge here just didn't want to happen. Good grief. Funnily enough, the most successful attempt I had also involved me getting struck by the shrink projectile from a protector drone. I thought this was going to be fatal, but it turns out you're actually really difficult to hit when you're tiny. Very lucky for me, considering it happened to me twice. So yeah, after that, it was pretty much a straight shot in terms of mopping up the rest of the enemies, and finally being able to acquire that blue key card. Somewhat perplexingly, however, the Battle Lord in the midst of all this had just decided to comprehensively give up, now just wandering aimlessly about the field, not even capable of dying. all in all, I'd say that I had round about 30 plus attempts getting to this point, and if you think that that's the end of it, you're wrong. Pig tanks, get your pig tanks. In all honesty, these aren't actually that tough to deal with. Doubly so if you find a good way of hitting the button on the back. Though, you may notice that within the room here, there is no actual exit level button, and that's because when you get in here, hello, Cycloid Emperor. Been a while since I last kicked the eyeball out of your skull. Or was that a relative? I don't know anymore. Either way, it's not a straight one-on-one. You get a few additional enemy spawns, more enforcers, more commanders, and yes, even a handful more big cop tanks that filter in from somewhere around the edges. Pro tip, I wouldn't dilly-dally in this room too much once you've activated Cycloid Emperor, or after just running past the big cop tanks for that matter, because you'll just set yourself up for a prime bit of bottlenecking. You see, I thought I was being smart at first, because the Cycloid Emperor fires from his left hand, and if you hang around the edge of this room, his rockets just mostly impact against the edge of the door. But every now and again, one of them slips through, or one of the other spawned enemies gets in, and either way, you're gonna have a bad time. This is definitely a fight best undertaken out in the open. Much more breathing room, much more maneuverability, and much more opportunity to plug away at the health of the Emperor. It had actually been so long since I fought Cycloid Emperor that I forgot that his rocket firing pattern does change its angle every now and again just to catch people who think they can circle strafe away from their problems, such as myself, off guard. But yeah, once I got past that particular hurdle, it was pretty much smooth sailing. Cycloid goes down, the crowd goes wild, and I get my kill screen. Unfortunately, I did manage to miss a few enemies, 1,200 here in total. Bit of a far cry from the 10,617 that you get from Doom's version of Nuts, but still, I'd say it was fairly challenging all the same. So yeah, Duke's Nuts. Nuts in Duke. If you feel like having a crack at them for yourself, then you'll find the link, as usual, in the description below. Might want to get there quick though, I have a bad habit of crashing certain types of download host. Feel free to let me know if you've got any suggestions of other Nuts-style maps for different games. I'd be really interested to know. I am aware of a Nuts map for Dusk, I've covered that in the past, but when it comes to other games, my knowledge is a bit hazy. But all in all, I hope you've enjoyed this little jaunt into Duketown, something a bit different. Feel free to show your appreciation via the old like and subscribe, and if you really want to show your appreciation, you can always chuck me some coin via Patreon. $1 a month is the minimum to get yourself on this here esteemed list of names. But until next time, this has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.